So laggy. Hey guys, it's Trunkin3691 and you're watching Anime Universe. And this time we have a special episode. We have a guest. You can't see him, but he does have an audio. I assure
Hello.
you he's here. Yeah, there he is. This is Slackerwriter, correct?
That's right.
Alright, so, today we're just gonna basically talk about basically anything. So, on the subject of, say, Full Metal Alchemist, what do you think of that?
It's interesting that you bring up Full Metal Alchemist, considering how big it's gotten. It's a comic series that was started like 10 years ago. You've seen 2 series with it, now 2 movies. So with it in general, I love the aspect that it's a story that combines comedy and drama, but intertwining it so much that you are laughing at 1 minute, but then crying at the next. That's just how much of a roller coaster it can be. I really love the characters like Ed and Al. I love their struggle to get their bodies back. You see a whole lot of how they are close to each other as brothers. So it's a very well-rounded series, very enjoyable.
Yeah, and as far as, like, it's very interesting because I couldn't really tell which was more, into it, because there's a big difference between Brotherhood and the original series.
Yes, very much so, because with the first series, it was being produced as the manga was still in production as well. So they got about, I think, the first 30 chapters adapted, and then they went into a different direction.
Yeah.
Whereas Brotherhood, it was closing to the end of the production of the manga, so we have the main manuscript to go with to how to end this the way it was in the manga.
Yeah, and I always thought that it would have been better to me if they could find a way to, I don't know, the world doesn't revolve around me, but I thought it would be better if they would take basically the ending from Brotherhood and the entire beginning from the original series.
Yeah, you know what? That actually brings true, because on the first series, you see the first half of a lot of the Full Metal Alchemist story in much more detail, whereas when they went into Brotherhood, it was more of just recapping things, much more abridged. And then once they got to a certain part where it wasn't from the manga, or actually starting from the manga onward, then it was much more adapted.
Yeah. And what was always, like, very, I don't know, interesting to me about Brotherhood was that it was just kind of like very many things were different, as far as in Brotherhood episode, I believe 57, One is All and All is One. That episode is actually episode 16 in Brotherhood.
Right.
So they're just taking a long leap, and Azumi was healed by Hohenheim of Light in Brotherhood, whereas Hohenheim goes to our dimension, if you will, in the original series.
Yeah, so basically it's just left up to people's opinion, like if they prefer one or the other. Like I said it on various podcasts and other avenues that, to me, as much as I do enjoy the series, now that we're getting more of the adaptation from the manga, I'm more leaning towards Brotherhood, because I don't like watching something if it's based on something that, if you're taking it from the resources, that it's becoming non-canon. So it kind of is a disconnect for me to get involved when I'm knowing that it's not really canon to begin with.
Yeah. And it's like so much happens that it's just every once in a while, like, since I've adapted so much to the original series, I watch Brotherhood, and quite frankly, to me, it irritates me because I'm not used to that storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, this is a little bit off subject, but still on the subject of FMA. What really attacked the fans the most was the death of Maze Hughes.
Yes.
It was so he was entwined with it so much that when he died, it devastated me. It devastated my friends that watch FMA. It was just one of those things. in an anime that can actually make you feel for a TV show.
Exactly. Like what I always liked about Hughes as a character that a lot of the characters have different exaggerations towards him, but with Hughes, I always felt like he was the person that if he was a real life person, you would actually know this person. This is someone with like very human emotions like this. You could see anyone in your real day to day life of someone who really cares about their family. And I think it's like a very bold move to take someone who you would perceive as a very big supporting character and take them away from the story pretty early on. Although I do like that they do bring him back various times, like with flashbacks and whatnot. So you still get to see what they're like, although they're taken out from a progression of the story from very early on in the storyline's progression, as it were.
Yeah, and it's just so much as Mace Hughes was so much into the storyline and so much into this that once you take him out, to me, the first couple episodes after Mace's death, it kind of felt empty to me.
Mhm.
And it just, at least he died legitimately by a homunculus. Like, if he'd have died, like, in some weird train wreck, I don't know, that may sound a little bit off, but if he had died something stupid like that, then that would irritate me more, as if, since he died by a homunculus.
Mhm. Um, yeah, exactly. Like that actually brings up like how much of a cool B story was for Mustang as well to find out what happened to Hughes. And once you do see the reveal, I think that's one reason why I like Brotherhood more, just because you see much more of that raw emotion coming from Mustang.
Yeah, Mustang's always been a certain kind of character to me. He's always stuck
Hmm.
out. He's never been just that other guy in the series. Maze's
No.
death really affected him,
Yeah.
and I thought that was pretty great that it did that.
I would say for people of certain ages, what they can apply themselves with Full Metal if they want to relate to the characters. I'd say kids and teenagers will probably relate to Ed and Al the most. But when you get to like my age, being in mid 20s, you'll relate more to the Mustangs and the Hughes and the Hawkeyes, basically.
Yeah. So, what would you, if you had to pick one character to represent yourself, which character would that be and why?
Um, I guess like I would probably think this is a running joke with me and Mike, aka Gozar, that he is the Hughes to my Mustang, as it were. So he's very much more of a lovey-dovey, over the top, like very emotional kind of guy, like very much more happy-go-lucky than I can be. Whereas I'm more like with Mustang, someone who kind of keeps to himself, but at the same time has goals for himself. He might put some fronts on, but when push comes to shove, he's there for people as well.
Yeah, like that I understand. I'm doing a little something right here, so excuse me if I drift off a little bit.
Oh, that's okay.
But I do understand what you mean there. Me, I've always seen myself as more of an Edward because very many of his traits that some people may not notice, I actually have something to do with Edward in that way. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, before I even watched FMA, I was sensitive about my height. Being called short just bugs me, I guess.
And you know what? That's a very cool thing. What I like about Full Metal, that reactionary gives to people. Like I always thought it was cool hearing the interviews Vic gave when he mentioned a story about a girl who lost a limb or two, and she can fully relate to Ed with the just like with getting limbs, artificial limbs attached to him.
Yeah,
So it's like there's very inspiring stories, not just from the story itself, but the way the characters move about in their lives.
yeah. And see, things like that actually happen to people. It's not just. I mean, of course, no one's performing human transplantations, but accidents like that can happen and can result in needing another a prosthetic limb, if you may.
Exactly.
Yeah, so how long are we running here? 10 minutes already. That went by pretty fast.
As that's the thing, if you're doing podcasts and the like, time just flies by because you're just talking about, in this case, whatever, but time flies pretty good when it comes to talking about stuff.
Yeah, this is a little bit weird and kind of a little bit of a off-subject question that could turn into something, but could also just stop it where it's at. Have you seen the alchemy, or I just called it an alchemy, the anime Black Butler?
No, actually, if you're talking about that, Mike and Michelle are very big fans of that. Like, with my anime taste, I'm mostly of the old school variety because I always love the history of animation itself from different walks of life across the world. So I really do get a kick out of watching stuff from the 60s and before, but I do try to keep up with some current stuff, like we talked about Full Metal Alchemist. There's some other stuff like Death Note, and trying to think of any specific modern ones. Genshiken. For any people who are anime fans talking about anime and manga, check out Genshiken. It's basically nerds being nerds.
Yeah. Another one that's getting more modern by the second, it's going a little bit more mainstream. The more mainstream it gets, the less I end up liking it, is Naruto. It's just started bugging me a little bit. It's like people are making such a big deal out of it when in fact it is a good anime, but the way people talk about it, they make it seem too big.
With that, like I always go with people. If that's what they like, they'll like. You should have your own opinions, your own 2 cents about it. Like if we're talking about that, my 2 cents about it, like I enjoy it to a certain extent. I'm not the biggest of fans, but I will say that I kind of feel for the anime, it's using more filler than moving with the actual story. So sometimes it's very hard for me to follow along when they put a lot of filler into that and not the easiest kind of flow of a story that I can, if I'm backtracking or anything like that I can get back on track.
Yeah. If you haven't noticed already, I've put a little background music into our conversation.
That's fine.
Yeah, so just to keep the fans interested. Oh, one thing I do in most of my episodes is I would generally, so far, it's been a Vegeta, but I pick basically any anime character, and I normally make it up on the spot and tell people that I know what I'm talking about, when in reality I don't. But it's basically if you could ask an anime character a question, what would it be, and then the people watching the video would answer that.
So basically, like if any anime character I would ask a question about, I would ask.
Yes.
Because we didn't talk about it, like, and I do a podcast with Goatzar of Alternate Reality Dragon Ball fame. I would probably ask Lupin the Third. Lupin the Third, how do you live life? Really, because Lupin the Third is a character that lives life by the seat of his pants. Not a whole lot of stuff gets him down, and he lives life one adventure at a time. So I would ask Lupin, how do you live your life?
Yeah. And I don't know, we'll see what interesting responses we get from that. We always get some funny ones and some weird ones. I don't know. Well, I'm trying to get my Trunkin updates a little bit further. We're running on a close edge here. We've got about 14 minutes left.
Okay.
Or 14 minutes left. 1 minute left. Yeah. So, basically I wanted to try and finish this up with a basic check Slackerwriter out. He actually is very interesting. Most people I see in videos, they don't interest me. I have a very low attention span, and he's caught my attention, so hopefully he'll catch yours too.
You didn't see it, but I just gave you a thumbs up.
Alright, I'll have captions say that up in the corner. That's a little thing I do. Anyway, so, see you guys later. Hope you enjoyed this 15-minute podcast. Sorry for wasting 15 minutes of your time.
Never say that. 15 minutes of anyone's time is awesome to listen to. So I hope you guys had a really good listen to this.
Later.